Okay, so the next group of compounds we want to look at are known as amines, A-M-I-N-E-S. So amines contain only carbon, hydrogen, and a nitrogen. Okay? So amines are important because they act as bases. So we'll use them a lot when we get to the acid-base chapter in May. So for amines, we can go ahead and underline the whole word amine. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at naming a few. So amines we recognize because there's a nitrogen present. Okay? There is no oxygen, only carbons, hydrogens, and nitrogens here. So to name an amine, we start off by writing the word amine. Okay? So I capitalized it here. It's actually going to be in the middle of a word, so we wouldn't need to capitalize it, but I will kind of so you can see the segments of the word here. So then we look at the carbon chains attached to the nitrogen. There are ethyl groups. Okay? So this one's fairly easy because all three of the attachments are ethyl groups. So I can call it ethyl amine. And again, ethyl corresponds to 2 carbons. So there are 3 ethyl groups. So you have to tell me how many of each of these groups there are attached. So when you're talking about the number of groups, you use the standard prefixes, the di, tri, tetra, and so forth. You only use the methyl, ethyl, propyl, butyl prefixes when you're referring to the number of carbons. Okay? So let's look at another one. Okay? So we recognize this is an amine because it has a nitrogen present. So I write the word amine. This time I have methyl groups. Okay? So the only carbons present I put blue dots on. There are no carbons right there. That's just where the carbon bonds to the nitrogen. Okay, so these are methyl groups. There's only 1 carbon, so we call it methyl amine. How many methyl groups are there? There are 2 methyls, so we call it dimethyl amine. As usual, we don't worry about the hydrogen. Okay, so we said that carbon typically forms 4 bonds, and then nitrogen typically forms 3 bonds. There are some exceptions that we'll discuss in the acid-base chapter, but for now we'll assume nitrogen forms 3 bonds. So if we don't explicitly tell in a name what all 3 of the bonds are, we assume the other one is a hydrogen there. So let's go ahead and look at a few more. Okay, so we have a nitrogen, so we go ahead and write the word amine. Okay, so we have some ethyl groups, some 2 carbon groups, and then we have a methyl group. Okay, so we just write all those together. Okay, we choose what order to put the methyl versus the ethyl in because of alphabetical order. Okay, so I would have ethyl, okay, methyl, amine. Now, how many methyl groups are there? There's only 1 methyl group, so I don't need the word mono. But for ethyl, there are 2 of them. So it's diethyl methylamine. Okay? So the ethyl came before the methyl because of alphabetical order. E comes before M. And we did not consider the prefix for the alphabetical order there. Okay? So if it had been tri, it would still be triethyl methyl there, for example. The prefixes do not count when you write in alphabetical order. So it might be easier if when you have a problem with an amine like this and you're trying to name it, you go ahead and just list off what you have. So let's just list off the pieces we have. We know we have an amine because there's a nitrogen. Okay, we have an ethyl group, a 2 carbon chain. We have a methyl group, and we have another methyl group. Okay? So now we have to figure out how to stick the name together. So we know ethyl is going to come first because it's in alphabetical order. So ethyl, I only have 1 of those, so I'm good. So then I need to worry about how many methyl groups I have. So I have 2, so it's dimethyl. And I'll stick the word amine. So we won't worry about using dashes or commas or anything here. Let's just stick all the words together for now. We can worry about dashes and commas later on. Okay. So for amines, really all you have to do is name what is attached to the amine. Pretty easy. Make sure the names are in alphabetical order for the prefixes, and then add the numerical prefixes to say how many of each carbon chain you have on the nitrogen there. So let's try a few going from the name to the formula. So let's just say I had let's do diethyl amine. So when you see the word amine, you should automatically write a nitrogen. That's where your mind should go. So diethyl tells me two carbon chains. So the ethyl tells me 2 carbons, the di tells me 2 of them. And we know nitrogen has to form 3 bonds, so we stick an extra hydrogen on there. So I can have ethyl, methyl, propyl, amine. Okay, so the amine just tells me the nitrogen. I do an ethyl group, I do a methyl group, and do a propyl group. Okay, so the order you put them around the nitrogen really doesn't matter. I could have twisted that molecule. Just make sure you get them all on there. So do we need a hydrogen here? No, we don't, because nitrogen typically only forms 3 bonds, and we already have 3 bonds in this molecule, so we're good to go.